Hey, welcome back to the Step Out and Thrive podcast with me, Bethany Joy. And if you listened to last week, you know my guest is Albert Pellissier. Did I say that right?
You sure did. Thanks,
All
Bethany.
right. And he's back again. But before we get started, we want to make sure that you are in the right place. Step Out and Thrive is really for those who are constantly in one-on-one meetings day in, day out, regardless if you're a parent, regardless if you're a teacher, regardless if you're a counselor, pastoral care professional. We get burned out if we don't know how to do connections well and if we don't feel seen and heard and understood. And so, how do we do that? That's why Step Out and Thrive is here. We want to make sure that you make the best of all the connections and the group facilitation that you have. And so, without further ado, I am so excited to have my friend Albert. Man, we made a great connection last week. So, if you haven't heard that episode, you might want to skip back and check out that. But for those that are joining in for the first time this week and aren't going to follow my advice, Albert, who are you and what makes you feel alive?
I am a coach for the last 9 years, and prior to that, I was a lifelong entrepreneur. And I still am in business. And really, when I turn people on to the reasons that are really holding them back, and I see that awareness light up in their face when they get it and they go, "Oh my God, I can't believe this is really what's been holding me back." That's the moment that I live for, honestly. I just when I can turn people on to something that they don't realize has been holding them back for possibly decades. Uh, it's There's no better use of my time than that.
Mm, I love that. I love that. And I know what you mean, that spark, that excitement that comes over when people not only see hope, but they see steps to how to move forward. And that's what I see that you do in such an amazing way. And so I want to catch some of the people up. Albert was sharing just some of his personal story, which, if you know anything about Step Out and Thrive, you know that we love to go deep and personal and just authentic here. And Albert was amazingly opening up about your past, about how I'll let you explain some of it, but from what I gather, you had, what was it, like a beauty salon kind of rental place, and that you were doing that, but then all of a sudden you noticed that people started moving out, and you had this day where one of your leading people came to you and said, "Hey, Albert, we love you, but we are moving out." And you kind of said you went home and you said you were going to enter into this 3 day depression where you're going to pull the covers over your head and just be. And that's kind of where we left it last week. So we are leaving that space now, but we did camp out and just that normalcy of to have that space last week. But help us continue the story from there, Albert. We'd love to hear what happens next.
Okay, so we would start with it's that point when you just have no idea what to do next. You're totally lost. You've done everything you thought you should be doing, and it's not working. And it's like, what do I
Mm.
need to do here? I have no ideas.
Yeah.
So I did decide that time, normally I'd been through that before, like I shared last week, that it was a typical way that I would get myself motivated. I got myself motivated by driving myself down to the absolute bottom when there was no lower that I can possibly go. And I would become just almost disgusted with my own pathetic behavior to the point where, I would do something about it and just at least take steps in the next direction. And the first step I took that day, instead of being depressed for 3 days, I decided to go and look for something on my, shelf help section. Books that were sitting up there collecting dust that never read. And
Right.
I came across a book by Mandino called The Greatest Miracle in the World. And in chapter 6, I think I read the line that was the game changer. And it said,
Mm.
I know why you weep. You weep for all of your potential that you traded for security.
Wow.
And Bethany, when I read that line, I had to just put the book down. And I'm 53 years old at the time. And it really stabbed me in the heart because it was so
Mm.
true. And I was
Mm.
like, wow, man, this is my problem. This is why I weep. You know,
Mm.
for
Mm.
decades. At this point, I had been in business for 30 years since college. And I knew it was the absolute truth that everything I had done up to that point was really to feel secure.
Wow. And what does that look like to feel secure to you? Because I know what feels secure to you may look different to somebody else. So what was that for you at that time?
At the time I had, I guess you would call it empire building, trying to create a financial fortress where I had enough, business interests that I would never run out of money. I would never starve, would never
Mm,
have to face poverty. It was mainly money
yeah,
related.
money related. Mm, yeah,
And the problem with it is that you can never really, no matter how successful you are financially, you can never really prepare for everything that could happen. Some things not even have anything to do with you. It can be,
yeah,
think of people in the Great Depression. There was nothing you could have done that would have prevented the Great Depression from wrecking whatever business you have. So the
exactly.
problem is whatever security you think you're building, it's just an illusion anyway.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's this desperateness to try to think of every eventuality of protecting from every possible assault, And so I was engaged in an effort that was never going to succeed because you can never be completely secure financially no matter what you do.
yeah. And
And
that's huge. I mean, we're not going to camp out there, but that statement that you just mentioned is huge for any business owner, for any parent, for pastor, whatever. There's really nothing we can do to feel completely secure,
right,
really. Except, I mean, faith in God, right? But even then, I mean, if we're being real, here on this earth, there's always going to be those couple things that really come and just really shake our foundations, and that's what makes our faith even bolder than what it is. But we just need to kind of set that reality that if we truly are living out what God wants for our lives, if we're really in the center of His hand, it's almost the most insecure place we can be when we give everything up to him to control, right? And so it's one of the hardest things I think as a business owner because I feel like I have this responsibility, especially I have to have this house. I have to make sure I provide for my kids as a single mom. I have certain responsibilities, but at the end of the day, responsibility does not equal security. And that's a hard equation, really, in all honesty. You could be the most responsible person in the world, but just because you're responsible does not mean you can provide your own security. And so that's a huge point that you just made. And breathe that, but yet it's also a relief too. It's like, oh wow, like, okay, I can't control the world. Awesome. And know the person that does and know the one that does. So, what do you have to say about all of that?
well, and that's really what we ultimately wrestle with, isn't it? It's our urge, our need for control and safety, and then the counterbalancing forth of having faith and surrendering the things that are beyond our control, and
Exactly.
enjoying every single day in the meantime, regardless of what may be happening or what thunderstorms you're going through. I mean, that
Right.
is not easy.
Oh, no kidding. But you can learn to dance in the rain, right? And that's what I
To
hear you
learn to
saying.
dance in the rain and just, but it's, saying it is is so much easier than doing it,
No kidding.
for everyone. And that's the challenge, and sometimes it takes a long time before you really can. Uh,
Yeah. And that's part of life, right? I think that's the adventure of life that we're journeying because it's not the same storm that we go through a gazillion times. I mean, some of us maybe, but for most of us that I know, we go through different storms, but that shapes who we get to influence in our story. And I think there's major points to that. And so I love how your story is unfolding now because it said you were there, you found this amazing book, that one line which you said you literally had to put your book down. So that should be a testimony to authors too, is that I know sometimes we pour over every sentence of our book or even coaches, resources, or whatever. You walked away with that one line.
yeah,
And you that changed, it sounds like that changed the whole trajectory of your life. And so
it
bring us
really.
back into that moment. You've read that line, you're taking time. So what changed? What shifted for you?
Two things. One, I realized that I really had been neglecting my business when I went back in there and say I could see it in a different way. I was like, oh wow, I'm not really filling my present place here in any sense.
Mm,
There were light bulbs out. The fountain was filled with algae. The latch on the women's bathroom stall was broken, and I wasn't pouring myself into what was right in front of me. Uh, it really was a money extraction experiment. It's just like I
Mm,
wanted people to pay me. I wasn't really putting in the care and the love and the attention. Um, I was just taking what I needed out of it in this sort of a desperate, security building exercise that wasn't
mm,
really working. And so I came to realize that the only real security you have is in knowing that you'll do the right thing in the present moment,
mm.
with faith.
Yeah.
And you always have that option, right? You're
Mm,
smart, right? You're going to make the best decision. It's having that faith and confidence that you're on the ultimate right direction, you're on the right road, and that if you have faith in yourself, you have faith in God to just make the best decision you can today.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all you really need.
It's huge. That's huge. So
And
what
so
big decision did you make? I mean, you were sitting there, and I love how you mentioned that. I'm sure that was a hard reality to really look around and go, okay, like I am in this mainly for the financial gain, and I'm not, I really appreciate the way you said that. I don't have the care. Like I have really let this go. So you were presented with the opportunity of either A, you're going to pour more care into this, or B, it sounds like you had to go a different direction. And so I'm curious to see A, what that decision was like for you, and B, how that worked out.
So I made the determination that I was going to fill my present place.
Mm,
And when I say that, not fill the salon back up with hairstylists, I was going to pour my heart and soul into the effort. And so I went back with a different attitude. Now I didn't, begin advertising and try to, get new recruits. I just went over there and accepted my responsibility. I started changing light bulbs. I drug the fountain out onto the
mm,
balcony and washed it and got rid of the algae and put fresh water in it. I fixed the latch on the women's bathroom stall. I mean, these things sound, simple, right? Putting light bulbs everywhere that they needed light bulbs, making sure the place looked good. And so here was the miracle. It was a couple of days of doing this. And now, normally the people who are walking down the hall, they're not my clients. They're coming to see a beauty professional who's renting their space from me, and it's their business. So these clients, we don't have a reception area. They go straight to their own, the person, whoever they made the appointment with. And so normally I would just walk past these people because they're not my clients. But
mm,
in my new attitude of, pouring myself into it, I would say, "Hey, how are you doing? Is there any way I can help you?" And there was a young man. He was a father. He had two little boys that were walking along with him. He had one, holding each of their hands, and they were walking down the hall, and they were staring into a darkened window of the barber shop. And
mm,
I said, "Hey, can I help you?" And he said, "Well, I had an appointment. I was looking to see if this, guy could cut my kid's hair." And I
mm,
said, "Well, he's not responding." And I said, "Well, let me see if he'll respond to a text message." So I'm texting the barber to see if he's available. And then the man and I start chatting, and this is what he says. He goes, my mom's about to move into a place just like this, but she's really frustrated because they keep delaying the opening."
mm.
And I said, that's interesting. I said, "Well, if you see her, just mention, I have plenty of availability and she could move right in." And I didn't, I said it in sort of a lighthearted way. And the barber never messaged back, and the man left with his two boys. And I went on
Mm,
about my business to fill my present place. Well, about a half hour later, I walked out of the facility and went down to get in my truck. And I hear somebody call my name, and it's like, "Albert." And I look over, and it's the same man. He's still sitting in the parking lot. He says he
wow.
has his mother on the phone at that moment, and she wants to talk to me. So I walk over, he hands me the cell phone. His mother just starts talking. I don't say a word. She talks for 20 minutes about her frustrations, about what she's looking for, that she's really has another stint in her. She's just looking for a place to move into. The other place
Mm,
keeps delaying, delaying. And so after all that, I invite her to come the next day and take a look. And she comes. She rents one of my largest spaces. She agrees to manage another room that I had that needed some oversight. And
Mm.
within 2 weeks of that, three other of her coworkers from wherever she was coming from also came and rented space from me. And so
Wow.
it was like almost half of my vacancies were all filled just from me being there, being
Mm.
helpful,
Mm.
being curious and interested in helping people in some way. And it was really a miracle. And
Wow.
um, I had the insight after this that, you know what, it's not that the people who rented from me that moved out were bad at what they did. They were
Mm.
great stylists. Often they were just not, no one had really ever taught them the basics of business.
Yeah.
And that I knew a lot about. And so I
Mhm.
started holding weekly classes and just inviting
Mm.
these stylists to come for free. And my
Wow.
entire frame of reference on what I was doing there shifted from this is like a rental facility and, pay the rent or get out to this is like a business development center. This is an incubator
Yeah.
for people who have never been in business in their lives before. And I could pour into them and share the wisdom that I had learned over the previous 30 years. And Bethany, I thought it would give them a little bit of boost,
Mm.
but I'm not kidding when I say that the people who attended the classes were doubling and tripling their revenue in a matter
Wow.
of like 12 weeks. Now, one thing I can't take all the credit for that because what I realized was after I taught the first three or four classes, I really didn't know anything about the particulars of the beauty business. I knew the basics of
Mm.
business, but I started asking some of the successful people that were already in there that had been in that business for 20 years, would they like to teach a class and share their wisdom?
Wow.
And so we started rotating in the successful hairstylists and barbers, and they mentored the people who were younger or newer. And that's what made the difference. It was
Wow.
this sharing of best practices and tricks and tips and wisdom and just, what it was like to hear a successful person share with people who were less experienced. And it was phenomenal. And so what ended up happening, the further part of the miracle, certain industries are small and the community, everyone knows each other. So as these stylists became more and more successful and shared that with their friends and people that, worked at other places, they all wanted to be there and be part of this culture where
Mm.
this was not just renting a chair. This was not renting a
Yeah.
booth. This was not renting a space. There was something going on here that was different than anything else in the city had ever seen. It was a community of people like helping each other share. It wasn't, you would think in some sense they would feel like it's competition,
Mm.
but it really was, they were helping each other, even though in a certain sense they may be competing for the same people. And
Wow.
Bethany, the salon filled up. I never had to spend a penny on advertising ever again. And
Wow.
it stayed full for
That's amazing.
the next 9 years. Uh,
Wow.
and
That's
so,
amazing. So I want to take a second. The thing that just blows my, because I didn't know the story. So I'm hearing it for the first time as you're sharing it here. But what's amazing about all of this is that it's different than a lot of the other stories that I've heard. It's somebody's trying something and they realize, oh, it doesn't really fill me up, and so I'm going to go on to the next thing. Instead, what I'm hearing from you is that you really wrestled with this whole security idea and really said, you know what? I'm going to go back to where I'm at and I'm going to see it with a new frame of eyes, which you have. And you, instead of seeing money, you saw people. And you might have seen some money in there too, but we really invested in the people that were there. And because of that, it sounds like a community formed. And you were really able to not only just see this community thrive, but also see these individuals thrive in the one passion that they had, which was, beauty and I would say even making somebody feel great inside and out, but that was just huge in what you were able to create. And so I just want to spend a second here because I'm sure all of us come up with these moments in our lives where it's like, okay, something's not working. You just tackled that. Something isn't working. And so if you could, I mean, everybody's probably just amazed at your story that you just shared. And this is gonna be a hard one. So I'll give you two if you have to do two. But I was gonna say you can mention one or two big takeaways for that person that is in that crossroads right now, where they have the choice to either stay doing what they're doing or maybe just ask God if there's something else. Can you give me a way out of this? What would you say to that person based on your experience and your story that you shared here today?
It's really it's filling your present place. And filling your present place is pouring yourself into what's right in front of you.
Mm,
You mentioned like people want to change and go do something completely different. Oh no, this isn't working. I must be in the wrong, I must be doing the wrong thing. I don't
yeah.
believe that's the problem. I believe the issue is, are you pouring yourself into what's right in front of you? That to me is the limit of your responsibility. And when you pour yourself, your whole heart, your whole soul into whatever is right in front of you, that's the turning point right there.
Mm,
And I think, your second point is what changes. You change as a result of it. Yeah, it's my frame of reference changed. It just occurred to me, I can just look at this same situation different. And so I do coach people. You don't have to change careers to turn your life around. You can just see the career you're in a totally new way that will
yeah.
change everything about it.
Mm.
And this is the fundamental truth about it. You change your frame of reference and it changes everything about it.
That is huge. And just changing your frame of reference. In coaching, we have this terminology, which I know you know, Albert, is reframing, which is basically if I could tell somebody you're literally taking a frame off of a photo and you're putting it on, but in a different way. And that's what I kind of see you doing in this is that you're like, okay, if I could just take a step back and take a breath and go, okay, what is it in this that maybe I started with? What is my why? Why did I begin this journey? And is it different now? Has it changed? And what is it that would make staying in this worth it for me? And is it for security? Is it for relationships? Is it for trust? Is it for what is it? And I know, because this isn't going to be our last interview here, I know that you're going to go deeper into this. And so Albert has a lot more in his quote, not therapy, which if you're curious about that, you got to stick around for another interview here. But he has a way of reframing. He has a way of helping you move forward in these very circumstances that we're talking about even today is how to really pull out what's been on the back burner and put it into reality. And I think that's huge in what you're doing. And I'm seeing that all over your story. And so I'm going to ask you a question, Albert, and I don't know the answer to this, I don't think, because I got so many connections there in that CCA world. Do you have a book published based on this experience that you've had?
I do mention it in there. There's all of my turnarounds, I ended up realizing later had a common theme, and it was things that I didn't realize. It was things from really early childhood that I had been accidentally or inadvertently programmed in, just beliefs and fears. And
Mm,
that's what held me back in every case. Whenever I was able to really discover these sort of subconscious ideas and beliefs that I had that came as earlier lessons, that's when I always had a big breakthrough and would just, when I say level up, where you almost don't recognize your life, 60, 90, 120 days later. And so
wow.
that's what the book is about. But I do use these stories because I want to make it concrete that I learned these things by experience and going through them. And then I started realizing that, oh, this is the common denominator with everyone I work with. If I could
Love
only
it.
show them what they don't know is holding them back, that's the key to them just changing dramatically, which they probably have given up on, thinking that you can turn over a new leaf. And I had too. I didn't know you. I had plenty of attempts at turning over a new leaf that didn't work, but that's because I wasn't really peeking into the real thing that was holding me back. And then once I did,
Mhm.
these
That's
changes took
awesome.
place.
That's awesome. How can people connect with you, my friend?
So you can go one stop. It's backburnerbook.com. And I have a link to get the book. You can print all the worksheets and resources out as much as you want. And then if you need somebody to talk to and just help you get over the little hump or the big hump that you're facing, there's a place on there to click and have a short call with me as well.
That's amazing. Albert, thank you so much for sharing your story. He will be back. I'm not going to leave y'all hanging because I definitely want him to talk about his knot therapy and just all the good things that he has to share with us. So he'll be back again. But definitely connect with him, and he's got some amazing resources. And we will see you guys back here next week. So, as always, dare to do more than just survive, step out and thrive. See you guys later. Bye.
Thank you, Bethany.
You're welcome.